Francisco, virtual. And I want to welcome you to this event, the Fireside Chat. However, really welcome you to the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation here at City College of San Francisco. Today we have a very nice program, but as it relates, for my part, I want to introduce myself. My name is Leo Bello. I'm chair of the business department at City College of San Francisco, where we offer various programs in finance, accounting, marketing, and one of our new programs, only literally about 2.5 years in its incubation and now growing vastly every year, is the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. And that's a big thank you to the person that sort of spearheaded this and opened it, is Vivian, which you'll get to meet her a little bit later, but I always want to throw in her name. And big thank you to her for that. But anyway, one of the things that we do here at the CEI, which is the Center for the Entrepreneurship Innovation, is we do many things for students. And what do? Well, we offer experience space. We also offer students current research and practices about what's going on with innovation, how to connect with other students, startups, how we accelerate, a working environment, a way to sort of get together and start things off. Who do we serve? Not only just our community, but the students, high school students, also corporate entrepreneurs. We have a lot of people that are in transition from their current job skill sets and maybe want to open up into something else, and an opportunity to come and learn, a platform. And what we've done, and again, thanks to Vivian, is we now offer 6 certificates within our program. And I'm going to read this off just shortly because a lot of this is on our website, but I wanted to make sure I hone in on certain points. So we offer certificates of achievement in entrepreneurship in broadcasting and electric media. Another certificate in our innovation in business, which is our primary focus today. Another certificate in entrepreneurship in culinary arts and hospitality. Another certificate in the entrepreneurship for fashion design. And then also one for journalism. And then our final one is for visual media. So what we've done is we just incorporated, again, just adding to what we have our platform and into those different areas. There's a lot I could say, but I'm not really the star of today's event. I really want to get to that portion. And I want to thank you all for being with us this afternoon. An event that's going to be both informative and eye-opening and hopefully lead you to the next area of where your interests are. So I want to take this opportunity and introduce you to our dean, the dean for the School of Business, and that is Jesse Lee. Jesse?
Thank you, Leo. I should also say I'm not the star of this event as well, but I would say 2-3 minutes of remarks. And again, I really want to appreciate Lauren being our moderator today, and certainly the five panelists, Amir, Sedale, Arjita, Ann, and Stephen. Thank you for joining us today. And I also want to recognize Vivian. She is really the rock star of our Center for Entrepreneurship. For the students on the call, you know how lucky you are. For the students who are going to be planning to be a part of our program, and for the folks on the call who may not be familiar, the CEI at CCSF is an amazing resource hub. And this is just one of those things that we're doing to bring you, again, more knowledge, more information, more resources. I think I shared with some of the folks previously, I collect quotes, just like some people collect pet rocks. I collect quotes, and I always like to share 2 with the group. For today, I picked 2. Hopefully that would be apropos. In light of everything that's going on in terms of the Asian American attacks, in light of all the crazy stuff that's going on, fear is a big theme right now. I am afraid. I don't know what's going to happen. And as an entrepreneur, we don't know what's going to happen. But as you pursue your entrepreneurial journey, I want to share with you these 2 quotes with regard to how to conquer fear, how to approach fear in a very different way. And I'll type it in chat in just a moment. But the first quote is, never let your fears be bigger than your goals. So as entrepreneurs, things will not work out, right? Things will fail. You may have all these obstacles, but never let those fears hold you back, okay, from pursuing your dream and really embarking on whatever actions plan that you have. So let your goals dictate how you want to proceed and not let your fears constrain you, especially when you see everything that's going on around you. Don't give up on your goals. And the second quote, in terms of trying to put fear in perspective, is to deal with things as they come, not as you fear. So we can't plan too far ahead. We can't strategize too far ahead. So deal with things as they come. Take it one step at a time. You know what you know, you don't know what you don't know, but try not to let fear, again, get in the way. Try not to let fear prevent you from stepping outside. Try not to let fear from, again, holding you back and, sort of limit you and your potential. So we all have to conquer fear in our own very different ways. And just know that fear is part of life. Failure is part of life. Your goals, your passion needs to override those fears. I'll take another moment to share with you. I have a different spin on the Nike Just Do It motto. My new motto is just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. You just got to keep going one step at a time. Just keep swimming. And sometimes that's really the best approach as an entrepreneur. So again, I just want to close by saying, you can do it. You can get there. Just keep swimming. Okay, so I will turn it over to Lauren. Thank you so much, Lauren. She is an amazing moderator. She is an amazing, person who has done so much. And again, the 5 panelists, they have such great wisdom and such great stories. So I will be quiet and turn it over to the stars of today's Fireside Chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jesse. That's incredibly grounding, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. Welcome everyone to our Fireside Chat today. I don't actually have a fire, unfortunately, to sit next to while we have this wonderful chat, but I have 5 incredible panelists, and I just want to quickly share the agenda and make a request from our amazing audience today, which is the real star of this show. We will go through kind of a brief introduction to our panelists. We are going to do 1 question for each of the panelists. We'll do 3 questions for the group, and then we'll go into a brief Q&A before we wrap up. So what I'd like to have you do, because we don't have the capacity to address all of your questions while we are answering the questions that we've already outlined. If you have additional questions about anything that the panelists are sharing or speaking on, please put them in the chat. Then when we get into the Q&A period, we'll be able to go back into the chat and address those questions. Okay? So I know that we're on such a tight timeline today, we won't be able to address questions during the chat, but we will get to your questions in the Q&A as much as possible. So thank you for that. And on to our fantastic panelists today. Stephen Hoffman, aka Captain Hoff, is the founder of Founderspace. Founderspace is one of the leading startup accelerators in the world with over 50 partners in 22 countries. Forbes and Entrepreneur magazines ranked Founderspace #1 in Incubator for overseas startups. Anne, will you pronounce your last name for me, please?
Cocquyt.
Thank you. Anne Cocquyt is the founder of Guild. It's the leading global community to learn, connect, and grow with like-minded entrepreneurs, investors, and thought leaders in entrepreneurship, and has also mentored at the Singularity University and a number of additional organizations. Arjita Sethi is the founder of the Founders Vault and Startup India, which manages the India Rath Incubator, India's largest borderless incubator, and whose mission is to enable the most talented entrepreneurs to create, sustain, and scale their ventures in the new age of entrepreneurship. Arjita is also the founder of the EdTech startup Equally and has attended the Founders Gym Accelerator. So Arjita has a lot of background that she can share on both sides of that experience. Amir Khan is the founder of the Marl 5G Accelerator, investing in startups working on deep tech products and services for enterprise customers. We can talk more about what that means too. And Sedale Turbovksy. Sedale, did I pronounce that correctly?
It's Sedale, but it's close
Thank
enough.
you. Thank you for correcting me. Sedale Turbovksy, founder of OpenGrants.io. This is a search engine and expert marketplace which unlocks non-dilutive, and we'll talk about that too, non-dilutive US funding for organizations around the world. They're empowering startups, nonprofits, grant writers, foundations, and government agencies to participate in a new paradigm of funding. We're really excited to have all of you here today. Thank you so much for joining us. Amir, we're going to start with you. Marl 5G is very interested in not just individual entrepreneurs and their ventures, but really in the startup ecosystem itself, creating a community of businesses working on different solutions that utilize the same technology. Why do you feel like it's important for entrepreneurs, and how does an accelerator or incubator help create community?
Well, thank you. Thank you. Right on the spot. I like it. Thank you so much for having me today. I believe moral, as I've been a founder myself entire life, and being from founder mentality, what does founder create? Yes, investment aside, really how you can take that. If someone gives you $1 million tomorrow, that's not going to be for your any help if you don't have the right community who can help you get the right team members in place, get the right first 3 early adopters in place, get the right advice, mentorship in place. So hence, community is pretty much everything. And I also believe one person cannot do everything by themselves. You need a community of mentors, investors, advisors who can guide you through that space, and customers who can really use your product, give you the right feedback initially to really help you get to that next level. And Steve is here today, and I'm very nice to meet you, Steve, by the way.
Amir, can you give me an example specifically of how a founder might experience community in an accelerator or incubator environment?
Yes. So first example really is for myself, my first startup, Lentech. As an outsider of Silicon Valley at that point, I really worked with quite a few accelerators myself. I did not know the right investors in the space. I mean, Google can get you so far. There was no angel list when I started. So really I had worked with Steve myself before. So really working with Steve, really working with other accelerators and incubators really helped me navigate through the process and how to raise capital, how to do your first product pilot, what mistakes to avoid. Really, I have learned myself a lot that incubators like Steve's Founder Space, accelerators like YC, and QC FinTech helped me guide through that process.
Great. Thank you so much. That's a great example. I think getting inside information from people who have already kind of gone through that, especially in the space of money, because it's really, it sometimes seems so far away from our own personal experiences. Sedale, can you talk a little bit about that? Open Grants specifically speaks to the importance of non-dilutive funding to support emerging startups. What is it? Why is it important? And what should founders think about when looking at funding opportunities, which is often a major motivation for attending an accelerator or an incubator?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the real basics of it is that non-dilutive capital doesn't dilute or reduce your ownership of your company. So typically when you take capital that is when you take venture capital, you're diluting your ownership. So you're removing some of that ownership of the company and giving it to an investor, which is a perfectly fine thing to do, by the way. I think that sometimes there's a lot of VCs that get a bad reputation, and there's certainly VCs that aren't great. But we work with a lot of incredible investors, and especially in Open Grants, we've been happy to give away some of our cap table to incredible investors. But it is wonderful, especially when you're working in deep tech and other spaces where you're going to be spending a lot of money. It's great to get in a large amount of capital that doesn't dilute your ownership of that company, so that when you do eventually exit or grow, you really benefit from that upside of owning and really building and putting in the sweat, blood, and tears to make something happen.
Thank you. I think there are different kinds of funding that can come into play at different stages of your enterprise, and the types of funding that you might get early on have a big impact on your potential to get other types of funding later on. And so maybe that also goes back to Amir's point about community and how important it is to have peer mentors in your community that have gone through that before. And that can guide you through that as well. And the Guild Academy helps founders through the process of launching their idea. So often we refer to this as an incubator. What crucial supports do you think founders receive in an incubator that really help them at that early stage?
Yeah, it's a great question, Lauren. So a lot of our founders don't even know that there is a world of Silicon Valley and investing. And I actually didn't know that either. And I went through an MBA program in Germany and did management consulting. And then 9 years ago, got catapulted into startup land in Silicon Valley. And so just understanding that your idea may be able to get funding from certain investors, or how to make it work by bootstrapping, or understanding the methodologies of how you can build that prototype, is something that we teach in the Guild Academy. And women come with the most incredible ideas, and some of them decide in the course of the program that, you know what, I'm okay by building a $500,000 business, and that's all I want. And I do not want to build a venture fundable business. And other women come in the program and they're like, yeah, we're going to change the world, and please show me how to, and introduce me to the right investors, and show me what I need to put in that pitch deck, and what I need to show, which traction I have to show, so that I can, in fact, start fundraising and get introductions to angels, and know how to talk to them, and know how to build a fundraising pipeline, and just know all the steps I need to go. And I think that's very different, right? Our program is accessible to anybody. People can just enroll and buy the tuition. We also have scholarships. A lot of them, 50% of our seats go to underrepresented female founders. But then they can decide if an accelerator program is the right fit for them, and if they do in fact want to give up equity for funding. And that points to some of the points we already heard today. Is that the right path for you? And so that's kind of where we come in, at that very early idea stage, where people are still in full-time jobs, or they come back from maternity leave, or COVID hit and something changed in their jobs, and they say, you know what, there's more for me. There's more for me out there, and I want to learn.
Thanks so much, Anne. Arjita, Founders Vault helps emerging entrepreneurs at a number of pivotal points in their journey. And I think one that I have seen be really challenging, I don't want to say it's the most challenging for everyone, but it's very challenging for a lot of folks, is user acquisition or traction. Really, just sales. Is your product selling? This is also the single most important thing a founder can do to increase the likelihood of attracting investment. Like, if they've already got traction, their product is already selling, we can already see that there's demand and that people are willing to pay that price for it. What do you wish founders knew about the process of user acquisition coming into your program that would put them in a better position to succeed?
That's a great question. So actually, just this week, we transitioned. The Founders Vault is now called the New Founders School. And the focus for New Founders School, Lauren, has been, first of all, immigrant founders. I'm an immigrant. I had the hardest time starting a startup, even thinking about, wait, can I start? And then when I start talking about it, it is the children of immigrant or the first-time founders who do not have this network. They might be in Silicon Valley, but they still don't know how to penetrate this network. So that is the focus. But we have this term at New Founders School, basically, where we say, you can create great products, but that makes you an innovator. When you sell products, that makes you an entrepreneur. That makes you a founder. So the focus is, hey, you have a great idea. Let's try to sell the first product, do unscalable things, and try to see if it sells. And if it does, let's see if we can replicate that at scale. So the focus is, how do you get your first sale as a founder? And then you can take a decision whether you want to get it venture-backed. Do you want to be self-sustainable? Do you want a co-founder? Do you want to build a team? Because the moment, and I've realized that as being a founder for past 16 years and having a startup while running now New Founder School myself, I've realized the confidence a founder gets when they do their first sale is just something else. I know it's great to raise money. I've raised money from Europe, from Silicon Valley, from New York, everywhere. I've raised that money. It's great. But ultimately, I know that came in exchange to what Sedale said, equity. That means my value got reduced. But when a consumer comes to me, when a customer comes to me, I know he or she or they are going to elevate my company. They are not going to take equity. In fact, they'll become my cheerleaders and ambassadors if the product is great. So my focus is that, and that comes from my own edtech company where I built myself this user pipeline of 40,000 users. You already know the story. That's how we met, actually. So it comes from that experience, and I had to really hustle and work on ground to get each one of those users. But how do you build that?
Can I ask you a question about that? One of the things that you mentioned earlier is sometimes you have to do things early on that are not scalable, that later on you'll think about how to scale it. Can you just briefly give an example of what does that mean?
Absolutely. So our first 100 users, we had tested our first version of our edtech company with about 12,000 users. None of them converted to paid, 0. So we were very happy when we thought 12,000 users, but no one out of the 5 countries, 12,000 users wanted to pay. And then we realized we're doing something wrong. We went back, created a new version, and now I especially went to every parent, every teacher, every kid, and gave my product, and they told me what was working, what was not. Took their feedback, and this is literally notes. Took the feedback to our dev team, my co-founder. He built those features, and then we started having 5 users who started paying. 10 users who started paying. The moms started talking to each other. The teachers started talking to each other. And then we realized we are at a point that we found that perfect balance. Then within the technology, we started building frameworks so that the customer acquisition could happen and I could be behind the scenes, and we could now monitor different events and the consumer behavior to make it more scalable. So from literally that 5 to 40,000, it's a different journey.
That's a perfect example. Thank you. So traction is one way that you can really de-risk the investment. Thinking about other ways that shows up. Steve, at Founderspace, you've worked with hundreds of startups, and the majority of them have gone on to raise capital. So when a founder has gone through a well-respected accelerator or incubator like Founderspace, how does that impact the way that an investor evaluates them?
So there are a lot of different impacts. The number one thing we try to do is prepare entrepreneurs in the beginning for how to communicate to investors. What is the psychology of investors? What do investors want from a startup? What are they looking for from your business? So a lot of entrepreneurs come in and think investors want one thing, but they actually find out that what they're looking for is quite different. And going through any incubator, I think can be, if it's a good, well-run incubator, and I think everybody on the panel here are really examples of that. And I know Amir, he's an amazing guy. So the thing that it does, there's a couple things that it does. There's the network that the incubator itself has to give a lot more opportunities to the entrepreneur for face-to-face meetings with key people here in Silicon Valley and around the world. Number two, there is a halo effect. So if you go to certain incubators that have very good reputations, like we've all heard of Y Combinator, there is a halo effect around that, and it attracts investors. They are looking for graduates of those incubators because it's a way for them to filter. So they look at the incubators as a filtering mechanism. Incubators, especially incubators that get a lot of applications and are very selective, that helps investors, right? They can narrow the pool, because literally investors, especially here in Silicon Valley, are being bombarded with business plans, with pitches, and they don't have enough hours in the day to review them all. So they're always looking for that. And then the third thing is that when you pitch investors, it's not just the money you want. You want to be able to select the right investors. So there are certain investors out there that I would tell entrepreneurs, you don't want their money. Even if you're desperate, they're going to drive you nuts. Like there are certain investors out there that are not actually great people to have on your board of directors. And you want to be really careful, because it's like getting married. So it's good to ask for references. And in a way, the incubators can help you because we have relationships with investors. We know entrepreneurs who have received money from them. And every investor can seem nice when you're pitching them. But when your company runs into trouble, which almost always happens in every company, when things go wrong, that's when you need investors that are supportive and they don't blame you and cause problems.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I think that thinking about investors, we're often thinking about the money that's coming into our startup, but what we don't often talk about is the money that we spend as founders to make our engine go. And one of those costs can be incubators and accelerators, right? Some of them cost money and some of them cost a lot of money. How do you know when it's worth it to pay for help? And how do you know when it's the right time to make that investment for yourself in your company? Now we're going to open it up to the panel, and so this is for everyone to share from their experience.
Well, I would say, the references really tell you how much value there is in the program. So asking the people who went through the programs would be my first recommendation. And then something really interesting happens in the Guild Academy, because we have half of our seats go to scholarships, so they're free, and the other half is $1,000. And the commitment of the women who pay the $1,000 is totally different. I mean, there's some scholars as well who are very committed, but I do have to say the money and the skin in the game changes how people react and how people act within the program. And I thought it was really interesting, because I thought they have to be cheaper to make it more accessible. And so that would be my recommendation. Ask the people who went through the program and see if it was worth it in their opinion.
I think that what you touched on, and though, was very key. And I actually experience this a lot when I'm trying to commit to a new habit, like exercise. If I just say like, oh, I'm going to do it and I'm going to join this this YouTube class at 2 o'clock today, versus I join a program and pay for it. Like when that program that I paid for, I showed up for that one. So there is this sense that you, as you said, skin in the game, that you can pay for it, and that's going to actually keep you accountable in that sense. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Arjita, it looks like you're leaning in. Tell me more.
Yeah. I would say every founder is unique. And I realized that building my own company in Silicon Valley, when even I would talk to other entrepreneurs who were pre-seed or seed stage like me, their challenges are very unique. And that's why at New Founder School, we have different things, different packages for people, where people can enter according to what they need and decide. They can hand select, hey, I need this. I need legal support. I need visa support. I need accounting support. I need to know how to incorporate my company. I need to know how to do my branding and website. So they can go ahead and choose. And I've seen entrepreneurs are really good with good entrepreneurs are really good with their spend. They know exactly what they need. So I realized that as I was a founder as well. So I would say charging is great. Equity is certainly something that I'll be wary about, because equity is love. It's mine. I've invested in it. So I'll be very careful about giving it away. But I would also see that how much of accessibility it is for most of the founders out there. So that's a kind of model that we've tried. Instead of a program fee, we have moved to a subscription fee of $10, $30, $100. You go ahead and you choose which one you want, and you can pay monthly, and go ahead, get that help. Get that help, whatever you need to get to the next level. And if you want to up level and get our support of experts, then they can help you even one-on-one, and that's separate. So I think the first thing for me has been accessibility, how we can make it at a value that everyone can afford who would have been in my situation. Because having a full-time job and bootstrapping my startup, I did not have the money to invest that much.
Arjita, that's a really good point. And I think what you expressed was that that you're often working with founders who come in and they already kind of know what they want. Amir, do you have folks apply that are maybe like they think that they know where they are, but maybe they're at a different stage, or that you would evaluate them at a different stage? Do you accept folks at all stages, or do you have to give them some feedback about like, no, you're a little early for us. We need to see these things first?
Yes, so thank you. That's definitely happened. We get about like 500 plus applications. This is a third cohort. And these are very well qualified. Breaks my heart to say no to a founder myself. We can only take 8, and that's kind of the way we're unique. Founders come to us to get that accessibility, and Arjita is like spot on right there. We are very hyper-focused accelerator. We are focused on 5G use cases only. So we do get application from ed tech, or we do get application from entertainment industry. So it's really being hyper-focused is what we do, and really providing that, saying that, hey, if we do say no, and I personally see every application myself, and that's, you know, that being a founder, I really want to do that. And with the application, we said that, you know, maybe you are not a good fit, but here are 3 other options for you that we have built. Or if you are a really good fit, but we just want to see one customer saying that, okay, we are good to go on this, or one small, some sort of customer validation saying that, hey, you haven't just built it in your basement, but you have tried it out with other customers and have feedback. And that's the stage we generally take in after a person already has that customer feedback, which kind of gets us out a little bit on the later stage. But, you know, definitely, I see everything myself, and we rarely give them feedback if we do reject them.
Sedale, what I just heard from Amir is that they need to have something already in place and need to be able to show some data on how that's looking in order to join. And sometimes founders get stuck in this kind of loop where, like, I can't do that because I don't have the money. I can't get the money because I don't have the data. How do you help founders through that kind of pivotal time where they're stuck in that loop?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we do is we actually connect founders to something that maybe founders aren't aware of, is that there's a ton of government resources available. Like you could basically have the equivalent of a non-paid accelerator through SBDCs and those kind of resources. And so those are all available through our platform. You can access them. It's legitimate, like no cost consulting from experts. I raised my first company, raised venture, grew it, exited it, all with the help of the SBDC. And that was awesome. So I think that there's something to be said there. And I did want to double down on what Arjita said too, is, you know, I have given away equity to accelerators before, but only in exchange for like fairly large checks. And that works out great because then everyone's incentivized, right? Like the investors are there to help you, to back your play. But yeah, when you're just starting out, you have no money and you need to get money to get more money. There's a lot of government resources there, and that's why it's part of the reason we built Open Grants in the first place. Is it's highly underutilized, and there's an immense amount of very valuable resources. Like it's my favorite agency, like the SBDC and the DLA. So yeah, that's
if you wouldn't mind dropping links, if you can, in the chat, just so folks can check those out. I think that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah,
Steve,
definitely.
when you're coaching a startup that's in your program, how do you coach them around when is the time to make an investment in their product, when to kind of take that big risk and make the leap?
So you're talking about when they should go out and raise capital or put in their own money?
Put in their own money. Yep.
Okay. Well, most entrepreneurs have to put in some money from the very beginning. It's hard to get anywhere with no money. And it's really important, I tell entrepreneurs, that before you start out, you should make sure you have enough money to cover your expenses, to live off of, for at least 6 months to a year, because it's always harder than you think it is. It's easy when you read about it in the paper, all these overnight successes, but when you're actually doing it, it costs more and takes more time than you would ever anticipate. The other thing is, you know, I encourage entrepreneurs to do everything they can with the minimal amount of investment upfront besides their time. And there is no fast rule for when it's the right time to put in money, because some startups are very capital intensive, whereas other startups really require much less capital. But I would say if you're going to go out and put in a substantial amount of money, the fundamentally first thing you should do is you should be in touch with your customers. You should understand exactly what they need. And you should really make sure that what you're offering them isn't, especially if you want to grow a large business, quickly, the type here in Silicon Valley, there are really only two ways. Number one is the solution you are able to offer them has to be not just incrementally better than the competitors out there who are already offering it, has to be exponentially better, because nobody switches for something a little better. Like, we're not going to stop using Zoom if another application comes out and yeah, it's a little bit better. We're already using this. We don't like to switch. And it's true of every industry. If you can't make something exponentially better, and usually you do it exponentially better through technology, new technology, not building it yourself, but adopting it and putting it to use within your market segment. The second way is you have to focus on some value that you can give your customers that none of your competitors are offering. So something that is so valuable to them that they may use your product in addition to the competition, because the competition just doesn't do this and they really need it. When you can get this sort of validation, and a lot of times you don't have to build your product to do it, you literally have to be able to engage with customers and get some sort of commitment out of them early on to that they want your product. You know, whether it's just a letter of intent that they're wanting, or their response to your prototype. Sometimes they will write you a check. In one of my first startups, I actually got MTV to write me a $350,000 check for a product we hadn't built, you know? So that is a thing. But honestly, before you invest any of your own money, get a great team. Like, go out there and find the people you want to work with, you know, get them on board, not people that happen to be available, but really the best people you can find who complement your skills. And when you get that team together, there's a magic there where everybody, you know, is collaborating. You're all committed. You all have all the necessary skills to build out this product without a lot of money. Then at that point, you can really start thinking, yeah, let's put in a little money and take it to the next step.
Okay, can I ask you a follow-up question there? Because I think that's such an, there's this question that we get from founders a lot, and it's like, okay, who from my team should apply? Our accelerator is only for the leader, but many accelerators and incubators are for the team. What do you think is the difference, and why should people have a team in place before they go to apply? Yeah,
so I will say this. We do accept solo entrepreneurs, but rarely, like really rarely. And I will, you know, the first test for me is nobody can build a big company, the type that venture capitalists here want to invest in, or even a medium-sized company. Nobody can build a company without other people. Like, you cannot do it yourself. So the most important role for the CEO of the company is, can you attract great talent? Like, that's your first test. Like, if you can't get other highly qualified, really good people to join you, then how are you going to lead this company? Like, what are we investing in? It's been shown over and over again that those CEOs at a very early stage, when they have no money, that are able to pull together great teams and actually get them to focus on a problem to solve, that skill set then translate. That same CEO is great at going out and raising money, great at going out and getting in customers, great at going out and getting attention from the press. But really, it starts with the team. And I don't care how amazing you are. You could be the next Elon Musk. He didn't build Tesla alone, right? He didn't do it alone. In fact, there were other founders that started that company. He joined later. You know, he's a great mouthpiece for SpaceX and all these things, but nobody does it by themselves. So my rule of thumb is, when you start a business, before you do anything else, before you go out and raise capital, before you write a single line of code or start building some product, before you, you know, start even thinking of the idea isn't that important. The first thing you should do is pick an area that you're interested in, pretty broad area, and then spend 80% of your time finding the right people that can solve problems in that area.
Amir, I saw you give a thumbs up. Can you speak to what Steve just shared? Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that. You know, the CEO's team is about the ability to lead. And if you cannot convince the right talent to join you, how can you convince investors or customers to really take that company to the next level? Couldn't agree more.
I want you to just say that one more time, because that's so fundamental. Will you just say exactly what you just said?
Yeah, so if you can't convince the right people to lead behind you and join your team and join your vision, most likely, you cannot convince investors or customers to really take you to the next level. Really, that's what it's all about.
Thank you. Yes, that's so key. I just like.
And then one quick thing I would like to add on that, thank you, is as Steve said, and this is what we look at investors also, is the team is extremely important, right? I, as Amir, is good at one thing. I have a co-founder who at Accelerator who's good at another thing. I have another co-founder who's good at thing. So having, if you have a great idea, sit down and find out, like write down what skills do you have to really do that. And then find out what skills do you lack. So marketing, branding, sales, fundraising, or product design, development. So scale that out, and that's when you need to build, like, this is the right person for this. Really, or like board it out what you need. And the whole set is what you need to take that company forward. And a lot of people do that solo themselves, but there are very few individuals proven to be done that also.
Thank you. Okay, I want to move into our next question. So some incubators and accelerators give you lots of money, but they take equity for participation. And some founders build huge empires without ever having given away equity. I think about Sarah Blakely of Spanx and folks like her who they own 100% of their enterprise. While others have used venture financing to build global initiatives, and I'm thinking about like Morgan DeBon of Blavity. What should founders consider before giving away equity for financial support? And who should consider venture financing and why? I know that's kind of a big, broad question. You can jump in at any point that resonates with you.
Yeah, let me jump in real fast. First of all, realize if you're a venture backable business. That's number one point.
What does that
venture backable business is you are really going after the larger market. So nothing up below 2 billion even. I think 2 billion is smaller now. Nothing below 5 billion. Like, you're going after a behemoth. That's number one important, getting the right market size. Find out the players. And second really is, and this is, I've met all the founders, and this is really, it's really a preference. And after that, if you want, and there is nothing wrong with building a company without taking venture funding at all. People have done successful companies for that matter. But it's, in my opinion, I could be wrong here. And what I believe is, it comes out to a pizza or pie. Do you want a whole smaller pie, or do you want a smaller chunk of the largest pie? So at the end, that's what to me matters. And you guys, we have experts here, please.
And I want to throw this to you because I think that there is a myth that smaller businesses don't need investors.
That's right.
And that there's only one kind of investor, and it's a venture investor, and you have to be looking for a huge check. Where do smaller companies bring in investors, and where do you help them kind of think about whether or not to give away equity in a smaller business?
Yeah, like Amir said, right? The venture world looks at you hitting 100 million in 5 to 7 years, or an exit at that point. An exit is actually an important word here, right? Meaning that you're gonna either IPO, go public, or you're gonna sell the company. And a lot of our founders do not want to take that path, but they still have pretty cool businesses, and they're gonna 3x or 5x. And I do think there's a little bit of a hole in the market, and the hype of the big venture deals overshadows that space. And I am very happy that we just got new rules approved by the SEC for crowdfunding, so that our investors and angel investors don't necessarily have to be accredited, and the limit has moved from 1 million to 5 million. And I think that opens up a pool of money for startups that's much, much larger, right? Because Main Street America can start to invest in the companies they really believe in, and also benefit from those returns. Now, I'm not saying all of these companies on crowdfunding sites like VFunder or Kickstarter or Republic, which are different kinds of crowdfunding platforms too, to keep in mind, have to put equity deals out there that are at the same rate as venture deals, right? And I think that's where we need to educate not just the founders, what the opportunity is, but also the angel investor community and the investors who are coming onto the platform to say, you know what, this is a convertible note, but perhaps there is also a revenue share model here where if you do get that revenue in a year or two, we actually take a cut of that, and that's how you pay back that investment. And at the end of the day, it's still all your company. Or we can get so creative with those deals, and nobody has said there's only the one thing, there's only the save and the convertible note, and you have to give up 20% in your first round that you're raising, right? It's sort of like the typical numbers, but nobody has said that that's really what's happening, right? If I want to do a flower business and I want to scale that all across the United States, that may not be venture fundable, but that may be a 5x opportunity. And why would we not want to invest in that, right? And so I think those are the interesting questions that we're seeing being tackled now, also by smaller funds and by VCs and funds going more in that area. And in some way, I feel like venture is a little broken because, the LPs give you the money, and because only one of those companies is going to make it big and 2 or 3 are going to make it semi-big and the rest will die, that's the only model that works there right now. But I do think there's a different risk balance we can find in the future for the smaller deals. And that's what I'm trying to work on with other crowdfunding platforms as well, and help our founders also understand all that, right? Which is a whole new world to understand with liquidation preferences and all that good stuff, and then decide what's the right path, so that these companies don't go through Y Combinator, get a bunch of money for way too high of a valuation, don't hit the milestone, and then boom, right, they're done and on to the next thing. And all this energy is wasted and all this money is wasted, and the customers are like, what just happened? We would have gladly paid for that. Nobody asked us. I mean, there's a lot of examples like that, and I think we need to find more ways, and I'm excited for that too.
Thank you so much for that. And I think that moves me into the last question. So a friend reaches out to you for support. They've been invited to participate in a program for startup founders, and they are really excited. They've been given this amazing opportunity. And you look at the link that they've sent about the opportunity to give them some feedback, some coaching there. What are you looking for in that opportunity? And what are you going to tell them to look for before they make a decision? This is for all of you.
Happy to jump in real quick here. I think, a couple of things, I think Anne mentioned this earlier, first and foremost, it is really the references. I think that each founder and, knowing your friends specifically and maybe what they're into and their risk tolerance and where they're headed is really important. I've been in accelerators that were really appropriate for what we were building. And then I've also been in accelerators that were just like it was just not a good match. And if we'd have talked to, the difference in those experiences was we talked to people who'd been through it and we said, hey, what was this like? Was it a good fit for you? This is what we're trying to do. There's so many different programs. There's really niched ones, there's really broad ones, there's online ones, there's in person. Like there's so many options. I think it's really talking to people who've been through it and seeing if it's a good fit.
Sedale, what does that mean that a program wouldn't be a good fit?
So for example, so this is my 4th company. In my 2nd company, we went through a program that was really geared towards like first-time entrepreneurs and spent a long time explaining cap tables and these other things. And we'd raised, we'd sold, we went through everything from raising venture to like, M&A and acquisition. And so like, a week period of like explaining cap tables was just like mind-numbing and terrible. And it wasn't a good fit. It wasn't a really valuable experience.
Mm-hmm. Amir, I see that might be an experience that resonates with you too. Can you speak to that?
I have been to, I have attended a program into like that before, and which is amazing. They are really trying to help folks out there. But yes, taking time in a classroom, which is one of the key factors or feedback that I took building Marl, was very little classroom. Come to us if you need help, whatever you need help, we'll guide you. There is no classroom. Go run your business, find customers, find investors. That's it. This is your only job. Do not sit in classroom. We're not here to teach you anything. We're here to guide you. When you get stuck, come talk to us. And that's it. That's really it. So I completely agree on that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I have found in running our programs that the things the entrepreneurs appreciate most, there are a couple things. So number one, they appreciate one-on-one feedback that goes deep into their business, not just surface level and not like a classroom where they're just sitting and learning, because you can get a lot of that in a university like programs, and you can get it online too. But what they want is specific feedback on their business. Number two, and they want it not just from one or two people, but they want to get it from multiple perspectives, because everybody comes to it from a different angle and can get different feedback. Number two, the entrepreneurs want relationships. So like Arjita was saying, you know, a lot of them come to Silicon Valley and they don't know a lot of people, especially people from abroad and places like that. And it's very important for them in a short amount of time to start building relationships. So bringing people in, different industry experts, marketing experts, lawyers, and for them to get trusted recommendations of people that could help them in very specific areas where they need help. And then number three, every investor, every entrepreneur that comes in to a program really wants to connect with investors. So if you ask them like what their number one priority is, it's usually, you know, what investors can I get in front of, and how can I get in front of them? Are you going to do a demo day? Are you going to make personal introductions? Are you going to bring investors in as mentors? So figuring these things out in advance and what the program provides, what they're really going to provide you, is important.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would love to add there from the experience of my company going through an accelerator program and how we chose it actually. So we were in EdTech and we didn't find any accelerator that was focused on EdTech and being run by people who were experts in education and technology. So that is one thing that I would really tell most of the entrepreneurs are the people who are running that accelerator experts themselves in what they are claiming to give out as a value. Go and check that out. Have they raised money? Have they done any startups? Did they fail and pivot, and did they go ahead again? Do they actually have a network? A lot of accelerators reached out to us and told us, we don't even need equity. You just have to pay a certain amount of money and you can join. And when I did all those reference checks that, you know, Anne mentioned and Amir mentioned, they did not have all that network. And that's a very shady way to get entrepreneurs and, you know, try to, you know, get their equity or money. But the way we decided was we went with expertise. We were an EdTech company. We said, where in the world is the best EdTech accelerator? Where is the best education? For us, it was Finland. I was in Silicon Valley and I went to an accelerator in Finland who took 1% of my equity. And in return, we raised our pre-seed round on demo day. And our research still happens in Finland and our products are certified. So we really went out and asked, we want that expertise. Honestly, otherwise it's not worth doing an accelerator program. Most of it, like Steve mentioned, is available in a university. Forget university, YC Startup School, free videos. You can find most of the information there and they're updating. What you need is, you have this problem. Can this accelerator help you with it? And now weigh in, is 1% equity worth it? In our case, it made sense. It was just 1%. There was no thinking. We didn't go ahead thinking we'll get investment. We went ahead thinking we'll get the experience of Finnish teachers. We ended up raising money. That was an add-on.
I don't know. This has never happened to me before, but we're actually on time. I know, it's like shocking. Thank you all so much. And we are ready to go into Q&A. So if you have a question that's specifically for the group, please go ahead and throw it in there. If you have questions for specific panelists, they still have to share their question and the answer with the whole group. So you might as well just let us know which particular person that you would like to address it to. Other folks on the panel might have experience with that too, though. So I'd like to open up the opportunity for multiple people to address that question. Because I know that there are just so many things that y'all have experienced that we haven't even gotten a chance to talk about too. So thank you. Let's see. I'm going to go through from most recent and move forward, but I'll kind of jump around. So from Erez Powell, Erez, I hope that I pronounced your name correctly, and my apologies if I did not. Question for bootstrapped one-person startups with a small-scale, unpaid live beta. Okay. How do you value a company? I'm just going to start there because that's like, you could take a class on that. Valuation.
Okay,
I
can
talk
speak
about the valuation. Thanks.
I can speak to this. So the interesting thing is, nobody knows for sure what your startup is worth, including yourself. So don't feel badly that you don't know, because even the investors don't know. And that's why they'll often ask you, what is your valuation? They want you to tell them. But what they are doing is an investor, when they hear your valuation, whatever you set it at, they are comparing it to all the other deals they see out there from similar startups. So a good way to get a feel for this is, instead of asking them what would they value your company at, go to people in the industry like myself, like the people on the panel here, like investors that you may know, and just ask them, say, hey, look at this. What do you think this is valued at? And then they'll tell you based on their experience, oh, that's probably a 1 million pre-money valuation. And the other way is that there are sites like AngelList, the crowdfunding sites, angel.co. You can go on them, and if you get an investor, maybe one of your friends is an investor, and they sign up on those sites, they can see the valuations of all the different companies on AngelList. And they have literally hundreds of thousands of companies posted there. And you could see which ones are realistic, which ones are raising money, and at what money they raise them at. But it's sort of like the housing market. Like, what is a house worth? Well, a house is worth one value in one neighborhood or one city, and could be worth an entirely different thing in another city. So where you're located actually also determines your value. You know, Silicon Valley is a hot market right now. Startups valuations are higher. If you go to, Oklahoma, you're the same startup might be worth significantly less, because there isn't as much market demand, capital demand for startups there. And it's a smaller pool of investors. It also, just like a house, you look at your neighbors' houses, like, what are they selling at? You go on Zillow or something like that, and that tells you what the house is worth. In the same way, you want to talk to other entrepreneurs. What are they valuing their startups at? Are they getting funded? If you go to investors and you pitch them and they say, well, that valuation's too high, then you pretty much know they told you you're too high. It's probably better to err a little on the high side at first and then come down, rather than come in really low and then wish you had picked a higher number.
Thank you so much. Anne, I'm going to throw this question to you. Would an accelerator or incubator be best for an entrepreneur who only has an idea but doesn't have the resources to build a team or a prototype yet?
Great question. Well, so accelerators are typically for you when you're a little bit further along. So if you're at idea stage and you're still trying to validate, is that something I want to put my time and energy in? And, how do I get that first step taken? I would say go with an incubator, or what we call ourselves a pre-accelerator program, because your chances of getting into an accelerator program are very, very slim at that stage. And so perhaps go with that first, and then you can decide if an accelerator now is the right step to take, and then go from there. I did want to quickly say something about equity compensation as well. I put a link in the chat. There is a pretty good guide by Quip, and Holloway also writes these little books. It's a new startup, and they have really good resources about equity compensation if you're interested in that, just on sort of like how much to pay. There's also great contracts for advisors, how much equity to give them. There is typically the one from Founder Institute quoted, but that one has been revised with Wilson Sonsini, which is a law firm, and Carta, which is a cap table software, and they always bring awesome tools out. So I would also highly recommend to follow those on social media and see what they're up to.
Great. Speaking of social media, I want to address Angelica's question because this really resonates with me. A lot of folks think that they need to spend a lot of money and time on marketing and social media as soon as they have a product idea. Sedale, I see that might be something that you've experienced before. So how important is social media, and how has it impacted your company? How much should a startup spend on marketing, especially since social media has been influencing some really big product and service demand?
Yeah, so having owned and run a digital agency for a time, I can tell you that as an early stage company, I mean, if you're doing a lot of, like consumer marketing, maybe that's something that you should consider. But generally speaking, so I'll tell you, our company at Open Grants is 2 years old. We're seeing double month-over-month user growth, and we spend no money on social media. If you focus on building a baller product and just really execute and turn your customers into fans, that's going to drive, it's good to have, a presence on Twitter and places like that. But if you're spending outsized amounts, like over 20% of your, capital on social media, you're going to run out of money. And it's really just a losing game until you have, budgets like Google and some of these enterprises out there. Don't be dumping a bunch of your money into social media. It's not going to drive the same benefits as building something your customers absolutely love. And one of the things I think Brian Chesky from Airbnb said, find 100 people who love your product and, wouldn't be able to survive without it, and build for those people, and they'll turn into super fans, and you'll be successful and, build that following organically. So that's, I think the reality of the space is don't do that.
100% resonates with me. As a person who has a marketing agency, don't spend your money on marketing. Spend your money on creating a product that people love. Arjita, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I have a little different perspective.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Just because my first 100 paid users came from social media, not from marketing. I've not spent any money on marketing, but they came from social media.
Great distinction. Okay, so you can be spending money on paid ads in social media, but you could also be using social media in other ways to connect with an audience and build a community. Arjita, I know you've built an incredible community in social media, and it's not a paid experience. Can you talk a little bit about what the difference is between paid ads in social and building a community in social?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I wrote a Substack article right here, so you can go and subscribe. I called it "Community Building is a New Product Market Fit for Consumer Brands." And that's literally what we did, especially for my edtech company and even New Founders School. I posted on my Instagram, do you know any parents who would be in need of this kind of a product? And I started reaching out to all the people who started using hashtags like moms of Instagram, technology, screens, kids. And I started sending them messages. I sent over 10,000 messages, got over 1,000 responses back. And out of those 1,000, almost 100 people said, yes, we want to use it, and they converted to paid. The same thing I did for New Founders School. Nobody knew me. Why would I start something that trains entrepreneurs? I've never done an incubator before. I was just an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. I posted on my social media because a lot of people started asking me, posted on my social media, are you an immigrant or a first-time founder? Are you just trying to figure out what startups are? Would you like my help? I got over 200 responses, and that was how it started. None of it was paid ever. So I thought I would write about it, and that's like the article. So feel free to read it and reach out to me. I can tell you more about that. I love community building through social media.
And I actually would advise people to do that with Arjita, because as an investor too, the steps that she has taken to build out her community and the way that she has used the feedback from that community to then improve the product that then it makes people more excited to use it. Her process has been really, really great to learn from. So I really encourage folks to reach out. A couple of you spoke to the importance of your team and building the right team and bringing them on early. At a certain point, when you're bringing folks on, they are going to come on for compensation. So one of the questions that was asked by Erez, how do you figure out fair compensation for early employees in terms of salary, equity structure, and revenue share? Amir and Steve, maybe this is something that you might be able to speak to as well.
Yes, there's a couple. Oh, go ahead, Amir. Go ahead.
No, please. I was going to say, yeah, you may have a better answer than me.
Oh, I don't know if I have a better answer. So there are a couple rules of thumb that we use in Silicon Valley. So the founders usually are the first people to divide up equity, and sometimes they divide it equally, but more often than not, the CEO gets more than the other co-founders. And investors tend to like to see this because there should be a reason that person is the CEO. Now, the second tier is when you get venture funding, what typically happens is they carve out a 20% pool for employees. So this is called a stock option pool for employees. And then they make a list of the employees they need over the next year and estimate how much they should give to each of the incoming employees. This way, they can kind of budget it out, and they know it won't all go overnight, this entire 20%, and it won't, and they won't be giving people too much or too little. Now, a lot of it depends on the stage of your startup. If you're pre-funding, you tend to give away more equity, and a lot of times you can't even pay the people. So, you know, they're basically earning sweat equity. The later stages you get, and the farther along your company is, the smaller the equity gets. Now, you can look at some cap tables. You can Google it and look at some cap tables and start to see at different stages how much equity they're giving out. But usually, you know, after VC funding, after you get a Series A, you know, a vice president may get 1%, you know, or 1.5%. And other people get substantially lower amounts. So keep this in mind, but don't be too stingy. At the end of the day, especially at the beginning, what matters more than the equity, I'll be honest. If your startup is successful, you'll be rich, right? How rich? Who really, you know, I mean, how much money do you actually need? But getting the right people on is important, and finding a balance where they feel invested in the company, and you can attract the really good people. So it pays to be a little generous rather than a little stingy. It will actually increase your chance of success in the long run.
Thank you. And I know Anne had also dropped a link in the chat to some resources on compensation. So thank you. We have a lot of good questions coming in, so I'm trying to make sure that I address a number of different folks' questions. I have one question that is about finding funding from folks besides just investors. Where else can you find funding besides looking for investors? Sedale, do you want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah, that's kind of what we specialize in, is all the alternative stuff. So government grants are a great place. They are everywhere. We've consolidated them all in one place at Open Grants, but you can use Google or Open Grants or however to kind of search around and see if there's a good match in the grant funding side of things. There's all kinds of great stuff through the SBDCs as well. You can get small business loans. You can get really cool low interest loans. Right now, there's a ton of incredible opportunities with all of the Economic kind of Recovery Act money that's out there. So, I mean, as a founder, I've leveraged kind of everything to fund startups. And there's a lot of ways to be really scrappy in terms of pulling in funding. So venture is certainly not the only thing that's out there. And there's a ton of, I mean, SBDC, the SBA will give you small business loans with crazy low interest, and that can be, that's the way that some of my favorite VCs have actually seeded their funds, was through SBA loans that they backed against how they were investing, which is a really innovative approach. So yeah, get creative with it. That's my advice.
I have another one.
Yeah.
So honestly, customers, the people who will eventually buy your product, if you are selling a B2B product to large corporations, to large institutions, they can have a lot of money. And if they really need your product, they will pay you to develop it or to develop features on it. So it's really good. It's a good way to validate your product is needed, and it's a good way to raise initial capital.
Thanks, Steve. So I have a question here from Michael, and I want to maybe pose it as two different questions, because sometimes these words are used interchangeably and they mean the same thing, and sometimes they don't. What is the best way to get attention from investors if you have a small startup? And I want to pose the alternative way to phrase that. What is the best way to get attention from investors if you have a small business?
I can take that. Small businesses, there's something that right after the 2008 crash, government launched QSBS, Qualified Small Business Stocks. They are amazing for small business. Like, I'm not talking about venture fund companies. I'm talking about like restaurants, bars, boutique, people who are entrepreneurs who wants to actually create those business like that, who are not really ready or will be for a while, for venture funding business. Definitely look into those. Investors really love them because after holding 5 years, all the capital gains on them are tax-free. Love them, really. So look into qualified small business stocks. Any small business, I think there's some qualification, but mostly any small business can issue those stocks to investors.
I have another way. To get attention from investors, show them your product. So if you are opening a restaurant and you have new special food, like some amazing recipes that you've been working on for years, invite them over and have them try the food. If you're building a cool robot, show them the robot and what it can do. If you are, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're doing makeup, like if you have makeup product, cosmetics, have them come in for a makeover. You would be surprised when if you want to engage investors, don't try to sell them, try to show them, try to get them involved. It makes a huge difference.
And I would add, do your due diligence on that investor and tell them why you want them to invest. Because as we said earlier, it's not just the check you're getting, right? That's a small percentage of the value that this investor can potentially give you. And so really do your due diligence, look who they invested in, look what they stand for, look what they put on the table, and then connect on that. And even cold emails in that space, which are hard to do, and there's a lot of theories on that. But even with cold emails, if you can show that you have done your due diligence and you know why they should join you, that is absolutely critical. And then the second part, I would say traction, right? If you have traction, then always lead with that, because everybody wants to be part of a good deal.
Okay, I have one thing I just want to say, and then one last question before we wrap up, related to what you're all talking about, and really I think building off of Anne, what you just said. Start looking at which investors have an investment thesis that you really resonate with. So are there investors that are specifically investing in the things that you also care about, that they value the things that you care about too? They're valuing community in the same way that you do. They care about healthcare in the same way that you do. They're interested in the environment in the same way that you are. Start making a list of all those folks. Start following them in social media. Start following them on Twitter and on LinkedIn. And if they do something that really, resonates with you, or they share something that really resonates with you, reach out to them and let them know. You can start building a relationship with them before you reach out for that investment. And the more that you do so, the more that feels less like a transaction and more like this is an opportunity for them to be a supporter in their own community because you're a part of their community by that point. So I would really recommend start building those relationships and making space for that now, thinking about investors as part of your community, not just somebody who is going to potentially write a check. The last question that I have for the team is related to a number of things that you all have touched on, and I think really relevant to our community at CCSF. How do you show traction if you don't yet have a product? Yes, Arjita.
We were in that situation because we were building an augmented reality and computer vision platform, and there was no way we could have built that on our side jobs the way we were bootstrapping. So yes, we had a very early MVP, a concept, but it wasn't really playable. It wasn't really usable. So what we started doing is we started showing that MVP on our website and opened a wait list with a credit card information of this is launching in 3 months, and we wouldn't charge you now, but would you put your credit card information so that the day it launches, people would, you would be charged $7 a month for this application. And it was a hard thing to do, but this is what we had to do because a lot of the investors were asking us, what's your traction? Because we were first-time founders. Again, being immigrant, nobody knew us. I existed in Silicon Valley for 7 years. That's it. I didn't have enough references to show people. And I had been a founder in India. I had been a CEO of a successful startup. Even then, I had to restart that journey here. So we did that. And that's where I led all my parents and everybody, the teachers. Hey, do you really like it? So from Instagram, I would take them to our website. Then I would get on a 20-minute call with them. They would sign up and they would put their credit card information. And we built that wait list of about 2,000 people before we were able to launch. And that led us to raising money.
Thank you.
Yeah, so there are other ways too. So in addition to, putting out, it's sort of like what you did was Kickstarter or Indiegogo, but you did it yourself and in a targeted way. So there is Kickstarter and Indiegogo. That's one way to show traction. And then there's another very simple way. So that I found that actually works with investors, because investors are people and we respond to stories, we respond to emotion so traction is different for every investor. Like traction, it doesn't have to be your user growth is through the roof, your revenue is like just growing like crazy. Traction means that people want your product. That's what they want to see at the end of the day. That if they put money in, there's going to be customers there. You're tapping demand. So a simple way is go to your customers, your target customers, the people you really want to use your product. And even if all you have is a PowerPoint slide or a crude demo, show that to them and videotape them. And then cut together a lot of quick videos of their reactions. Now, naturally, you're trying to sell this, so you cut the good videos, but just for an investor to see what you see, like these people are going, oh my God, this is great, I want it, and for them to hear that over and over and over from different people, maybe within 1 or 2 minutes, a bunch of different clips, that can be traction.
Thank you so much. And I saw that you put some really valuable links. Steve, I see that you've put links to your book, and Vivian put links that the book is in the CCSF bookstore. I think everybody has already shared their LinkedIn in the chat as well. I'm sure that this, like, we could keep going in this conversation. I could keep going in this conversation all day. I think it's so fun and so exciting to hear from you all. And I'm just so grateful for your time and your support of our community. We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Vivian. So Vivian, I just want to say thank you so much. If you'll join us to thank folks and say goodbye. And I just want to honor you and all of the work that you have done to build the CEI into a place where the CEI is an incubator as well. The CEI doesn't invest in students because it's part of the Community College of San Francisco, but the investment that we are all making in students, I think, is a really awesome opportunity for us and for our community. Vivian?